Whether you're in the middle of a pandemic or just coming out of it, what are the trends in 2021 going to be for your restaurant around food, marketing, business, and leasing? Hello, I'm James from Marketing for Restaurants, and this is episode 145 of Secret Sauce.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 5 days since I recorded episode 144, where we looked at some of the big changes that we're going to see in 2021 as far as online ordering and delivery goes. And in Australia, a little bit has changed. So everything was happy days 5 days ago. Now there's 68 new community cases in New South Wales and everyone's shutting their borders to New South Wales. And fun fact, it's the 20th of December as I sit in my little office and record this podcast. So everyone with interstate Christmas plans, those in New South Wales, in Sydney, Christmas plans destroyed. So the tragedy continues, but we will crack on because we need to crack on. We need to keep the businesses running. This episode, I'm going to look at some of the key food marketing, business and leasing trends that we're going to see next year. And when I say that's what we're going to see, it's based on some of what we're seeing our customers doing that we think is going to be picked up by more. We're going to see some of the logical extensions of the trends that we've seen and some pretty big guesses because this was a really hard year to pick. I don't think anyone got it right. And next year could be more of the same. So let's start cracking on. The first one I want to look at is leasing. And I think, so your property, how was 2021 going to impact the location that you are running your restaurant from? And this is going to be really quite big. That is because there has been an absolute retail apocalypse. So for obvious reasons, a lot of retail businesses have tried to shift a lot of their purchases online, just as restaurants have done. And partially because of this, and partially because a lot of people have lost their jobs or too worried to spend, there has been a significant change in the way that people are spending. So many businesses have gone out of business in the retail space. This means that shopping centres are going to be looking for tenants to come into those spaces. So we think that lease prices are going to go down significantly. This is compounded by the fact that obviously, a lot of restaurants have closed, restaurants that have closed that aren't going to reopen. And we're seeing that in Melbourne CBD. We're seeing a lot of places with for lease sales signs on them. We're also seeing a fundamental change in the amount of work from home that is occurring. Restaurants that we're talking to that are out in the suburbs seem to be doing significantly better than restaurants that are in the CBD, just because so many businesses. So just to give you a bit of context, in Victoria, almost all businesses are back at work now. State government, they've still got their employees on work from home. But the enduring effect is that some places are now looking at having, 20% of their workforce working from home or added flexibility, which means that there's going to be much less foot traffic, much less meals prepared in the CBD. This is going to drive down lease prices in a big way. On top of this, we are also seeing lots of changes in industrial property. And so what I am thinking that we're going to see is people are going to be a lot more interested in alternative space for their restaurants. I know that there were some people who, when they realized just how bad it was going to be, they shut down their restaurant, really going into hibernation so that when they come out on the other side, they'll still have some money left. These are the people who are going to have some really, really interesting options about the way that they are going to structure their property costs. So potentially, I think we'll see more restaurants opening up, providing really amazing experiences, and we'll talk a little bit about that further down the track, because they're going to be doing it in a warehouse setting. So they will have a place that is going to be a lot bigger than they had potentially. They'll have a lot more options about the way that they structure that, and significantly cheaper. You'll also see a rise in the dark kitchens. So these are the factory kitchens where there is no dine-in option. Deliveroo has been really big in this space, driving kitchens that they will eventually own, but I think the opportunity is for restaurant operators to really have a good think about that logistics part of their business, and if they can do that, then maybe they'll be more profitable just doing delivery or pick up with no dine-in. Now, the other thing that we are starting to see a little bit of, and it's not a new thing, but I think it's going to become a lot more popular, and this is where you've invested all of that money into the kitchen, you've made the space look amazing, you're running a dinner restaurant, who's doing lunch, who's doing breakfast. These are the things that we need to be thinking about, because you are paying rent 24 hours a day. If you can get someone who's going to come in and run a breakfast cafe kind of business, then potentially you might get a third of your rent paid. That is going to be a really powerful advantage that you've got as you try and drive as much money down to the bottom line and to run a profitable business. There is going to be a lot of pressure to drive this kind of thinking where, and obviously if you could, and there are some very successful restaurants out there that do run. I've spoken to owners who run 24 hours a day. You've got to be really heavy on the systems. You've got to have a lot of processes in place and a really strong management team to be able to do that, because that ain't easy. There's no owner who is going to be there for 24 hours a day, because they will burn out in about 3 days. But if you haven't got to the point where you can systematize the business and really grow your offering into lunch, into breakfast, then maybe, just maybe, bringing someone in who's going to do those shifts. They might have an offering, they might have a brand that's different to yours, or they might be pretty much on point. They might be sort of sharing out and running that sort of service. A little bit of risk, but quite a high payoff there, because you're going to be able to decrease the amount of rent that you're paying for the amount of time that you are open. That's a big win. For those restaurants that see a decline in foot traffic, then I think there's going to be a little bit more work around creating that destination. You can't just rely on people seeing the A-frame out the front of your business or someone out the front bringing people in. You're going to have to try and drive your restaurant to become a destination. There's a little bit of work in that, a little bit of experience engineering, but I think there's the opportunity there. So big things for you. Negotiate really aggressively on your lease. Have a look up and down the street, because there's probably a lot of places that are now vacant. If your landlord's not giving you any love, maybe you're going to be better off if you move. Have a think about the times that you're open and the times that you close. Could somebody else be making use of your space when you're closed? And have a think about the space that you've got, the space that you need. If you're going to go to delivery and pick up only, then you don't need front of house. You don't need a fancy restaurant. You don't need the walk-by traffic. Maybe you could be looking at a factory, at some sort of industrial property. The rent is going to be a whole lot cheaper. You take those savings and you turn them into a marketing budget, and then you've got a really, really, really powerful business there. So a couple of things to think about when it comes to leasing. Now, the next area we want to talk about is exciting, something that I find really exciting, food. What are the big food trends going to be? And, I've seen some people talking about things, this item's going to be big, that item's going to be big, this cuisine's going to be big. I don't really subscribe to those too much, because of the fact that I think that if you take whatever you're passionate about, then you can make it. You're going to put enough or more than enough into that story to compensate them, whatever those minor trends are. Because look, let's face it, those trends, they come and go. Mexican might be up 10%, pizza might be down 5%. I don't really think it makes that much of a difference when it comes down to the local effect in your business, if it's something that you're super passionate about. A couple of things, though, that I am seeing. So if you're in Australia, then you will know. If you're in the United States or the UK, hopefully you've got a little bit of an eye out for us. You'll notice that there's a bit of a trade war going on. And so now we are unable to export lots of produce to some countries that used to buy quite a bit of it. So specifically wine and seafood. There is quite a bit of a crisis around lobsters at the moment, which is why we're hoping to pick up lots of lobsters really cheap at the moment. This has created a huge sentiment change that we have seen around people wanting to support companies that are not only producing from Australian produce, but are also Australian owned. And there's been a lot of local press. So Buller, which is started out as a bit of a cheese company, they've just done a $600 million deal to buy a milk business, and a lot of people are super excited about it because it's the first time that on a supermarket you'll be able to actually buy some milk that is produced by an Australian-owned milk producer company. This is something that I think people need to be thinking about. This is something that we're picking up on social media. We're seeing a lot of discussion about this, and also just in my own experiences. So yesterday I went to a grog shop, as we call it in Australia. Went to Dan Murphy's to get some alcohol for Christmas, and it was actually for our Christmas party for the team. So it was a fairly big order. But I saw some alcohol from a country that doesn't want to buy a lot of Australian wine anymore, and I thought, really? Do we need to have their beer here? Now, I love trying imported beers, but now there are some countries that are going to be, I think, a little bit less palatable. But I think from a food point of view, there's a really good opportunity to start when we talk about, buying local, really start to look at the provenance of the food that you are getting. So we are buying from this company and it is Australian owned. Now, obviously that works here. If you're in the United States, buy American. Same for Britain, same for the Kiwis, same for wherever it is that you are. Really start to support not only locally grown, locally sourced produce, but look at the provenance of who owns that company. And, I think there's a place to be starting to put that on the menu or in your About Us page. We have a policy that we want to retain economic growth here. Obviously, there's some amazing produce from around the world. We'll flag it when it's there, but our policy is to try and source produce from companies that are owned by our country. Last week, we saw a fairly significant movement on social media. It had a list of wineries that are, so they're Australian wineries, but they're owned by a country overseas that doesn't like buying our wine anymore. And that post listing 15 wineries, it had a huge amount of traction just with people being, be aware these places are not owned by Australians, and it's owned by these people. They're not too popular. Don't buy from them. This is something that you need to be thinking about because I think it's a big opportunity. Like many of our big opportunities, it will resonate with some people, and for other people, it won't make that much of a difference. I wouldn't become very hardcore about it. But what I would do is I'd make sure that the information is there so that for the people that it is likely to influence their buying decision, they can see it, they can have their buying decision influenced, and then you've got a new customer that you can turn into a repeat customer. For those that don't care, don't have it as a big deal. But I think really this is a good opportunity to really build that local community kind of feeling in your restaurant. It's one of those things that we find many people want to do good, but they're too lazy. So if I can come into your restaurant and spend some money, and I know that the meat is from a family-owned farm up the road, and that most of the ingredients are from Australian companies, then I'm going to feel good about that. And I can go home thinking that, I've done good. Really, I haven't done a lot. But there's a lot of people in that category who they will use that as a proxy for actual charity. Now, the second food trend that I think is going to be massive, this is the big one, comfort food. We've all had a crap year. Anything that can make us feel like we felt when we were kids, when we were safe with our parents, that is going to make a big difference. So comfort foods would be one of those things that I would be starting to put on rotation in your specials meals, starting to put them in there, starting to test them on your menu just to see what sort of traction it is that they get. The definition of a comfort food that I like is a food that provides consolation or a feeling of well-being, typically having a high sugar or carbohydrate content and associated with childhood or home cooking. Now, it doesn't really need to be the high sugar or carbohydrate content, but, I think some of them are. The other thing that I think is really important to reference is that one person's comfort food is another person's exotic meal. So if you run an Indian restaurant, then the comfort food that you're going to be producing could be the things that typically a mother would cook back in India. So, and it might not be something that's, what you want to do is you want to find that thing that normally doesn't make it onto a restaurant menu because you want it to be a little bit different. It's hard to run some sort of campaign and get people super excited about an item that is on your menu all of the time. You're going to be looking for that food that is probably a little bit too down market to actually put on your menu, but it was the thing that mothers cooked for their kids quite a lot. So you put that on the menu, you put it up on your specials board, you run a Facebook campaign, you target people from, expats from India, and it might be really successful. But there's another side to that coin. There's another side to that menu item. And that could be when you target it to the people in your country. So if you look at India food in Australia, there would be people who like Indian food but have never had it. Now, I'm quite adventurous. If I see something on a menu that I haven't seen before, I'm quite likely to order that just to see what it's all about. So you've got the comfort food for a certain demographic. You've then got the exotic food for the rest of the demographic. So don't forget to tell those two sides of the stories. What is the interesting Indian street food items that are going to draw people in, but also are going to be really popular with people who've never tried them before? I think if I was running a menu, that is what I would be looking for. That's something that's going to really draw people in for a comfort reason, but is also going to, it might look good on Instagram and if it doesn't, how do you make it that way? Now, you don't want to go too far away because if it's a complete re-engineering of it, then the biggest issue that you're going to have are people are going to come in and say, that's not the way that my mum cooked it. But is there a way that you can present it just a little bit different so that you can represent it in the best light so that you can get the maximum value out of putting that item on your menu? So from a food point of view, the two things that we want to be thinking about, think local, think ownership of those local businesses, and comfort foods. Now, the next area we wanted to look at is what are the trends going to be for restaurant businesses? Because I think, once again, we've now got a lot more options on the table. Whether it is going to be people who are entering the market for the first time, they are going to be coming in with a very different idea about how they're going to run their business than if they were opening a restaurant 2 years ago. People who have hibernated and have come out with, a few resources to be able to really change things up because they're going to have been sitting back for the last 9 months and they've had time to think about exactly what it is that they want to do in their restaurant, all of the mistakes that they've made in the past and how they can improve on that to make a better restaurant. And then you've got those who have really ground out some sort of survival over the last 9 months. These are the really tough business owners. These are the ones that are super savvy, very agile in the way that they run their business, lots of flexibility and a huge amount of resilience. There will be people who will be looking at the costs in their business with a much different view as to what it was that the way that they would have looked at it 2 years ago. So we've already talked about land, your rental costs, your leasing, and how there are opportunities to play around with that. I think there's going to be a lot more agility when it comes to food costs. So in Australia at the moment, you can get $20 lobsters, which is about probably less than half price because some people for some reason don't want Australian lobsters anymore. So they're really pushing to get those into the Australian market, which is really exciting. And we are seeing some restaurants who are just turning on a dime to come up with 3 or 4 really tasty, super good looking lobster dishes. Now, what it is with lobsters today, it's going to be something else tomorrow and something the day after that. It's about building that agility, potentially, if that's going to be the way that you want to run the business, building that agility into the food that you cook based on the produce prices that you can get. Wages are going to be a huge factor. And I think that there's going to be a lot of really interesting work done in the wages space, which is going to create a lot of pressure for people. We were going to have dinner a few weeks ago and we decided that we were looking for something a little bit different. So we thought that we would use Menulog, and we picked a restaurant. And by the time the 4 of us had gone through what it was that we wanted to order, the order was hideously expensive. And I said, you know what? Let's not do something new. Let's go back to our favorite place where we know that we'll get good value. Now, this is because I think they were using Menulog and there's the 35% markup on that product to try and be profitable with it. This is something that we have seen. It is something that we've known for a long time. We are going to get into a similar space with labour costs. Earlier this year, which seems like about 5 years ago, when we were in Singapore, we ordered at a restaurant that had tablets where it was all self-service ordering. There was no one front of house apart from a greeter who put you into a table. The orders weren't taken by someone front of house. They were all done on a tablet. And I think that these kinds of labor-saving devices are going to find their way into more and more business models. Now, same with the robots. Now, we've been talking about robots for a little time now, the ones that can make burgers and things like that. These are going to find their way into the businesses as they're able to generate cost savings, just because of the fact that that value needs to really be there now. There's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to have as much money as they had 12 months ago. So value is going to be really key. And smart operators are going to look at the parts of the value proposition that they've got for their product and look at where they can start to shave something off. So where is there something that, if you look at the entire value proposition that you have, and that might be, let's just say it's 100%, having a great front of house person in your restaurant might only be 5% of it. But if that's 10% of the costs, then people may see an advantage in the food being a little bit cheaper without front of house. Now, there's lots of people in that labour costs part of your P&L. And I'm certainly not saying that you need to get rid of all of them. What I am saying, though, is that you need to focus on where you can generate the best value out of that in your business, with your business model, with your customers. It will be different for many, many restaurants. So in the business space, we're going to see a lot of really interesting work being done around managing costs and flexibility, agility in the way that you're delivering the products that you serve up. As an interesting little segue into marketing, one of the formulas that we sometimes think about with our customers is, it's pretty basic, but it's something that really resonates with restaurant owners in a simple way to help them understand what needs to be done. It's a formula that's been around for quite a while, and that is leads multiplied by your conversion rate on those leads gives you your number of customers. Take your customers, multiply by the average sale amount that you've got, and you multiply that by the average number of transactions for each of your customers, and that gives you revenue. Take your revenue, multiply it by your profit margin, and that gives you your profit. So now, a little bit difficult to do if you're listening to this in the car or while you're doing prep. I will put a copy of this on the website with the show notes once they go up so that you can have a quick look at it. But I think that when we start to look at your business, you want to be making business decisions that are going to allow you to impact each and every one of those numbers. Because if you can make a 10% increase in each of those areas, it creates a huge difference in your profit. So starting right at the start, the number of leads that you've got. Okay, how is it that you're generating leads? Is it the number of people who order from a third party? Is it the number of people who come in from Uber Eats, for instance? Is it the number of people who go to your website? Is it the number of people who interact with a Facebook post? Is it the number of people that you've got in your email database? Now, many restaurants don't have those channels. So that's the first thing. You want to be thinking about the channels where you're going to be able to get those leads. Next thing you want to think about is your conversion rate. And so the perfect example of this is a website that gets a moderate amount of traffic, but it doesn't convert. And that's because maybe the photos are no good. Maybe the story doesn't resonate. Maybe the menu is too expensive for the people who are going to your website. So what is it that you're doing around your conversion rate? Now that's going to give you the number of customers. So take the number of customers that you've got, your average sales amount. What are you doing each and every time to upsell where appropriate? How strong is your desserts offering? How strong are your beverages, your cocktails, your craft beers, all of those sort of things that can be added on and just really sort of increase that per seat revenue up a bit. Now, average number of transactions. This is how many times does a customer come in each year? This is something that far too few restaurants focus on because they think that they're cooking great food, they're great value in their location, and that people are just going to come back. Well, it doesn't work like that. For some, sure, they'll come back. And you'll find that one person or the two people who every Thursday night or Friday night, they'll be in there and they'll be sitting in the same place and they'll order the same thing and you'll call them your regulars. But how many people come in twice a year? And how many of the people who've been in once a year have you asked to come back a second time? How many people have you given a reason to come back a second time? Is the menu really deep with amazing dishes that make people think, I could eat here 5 times and order something different every time because this is just epic? Have you been communicating with them? Profit margin, we've spoken about looking at your lease costs, looking at your food costs, looking at your labor costs, all of these sort of things. I think there's going to be relentless pressure on pushing them down in some parts of the market. And I think this is really important to remember. We've seen restaurants that have been really successful operating in an area where there's not great demographics, where the people aren't that rich. There's a few people that are rich and they cater really well for those people. They make it really exclusive. They make it a aspirational restaurant for people to come to, and they have lots of people who want that product. Then there are other places where they are really targeting. Maybe it might be a low-end demographic and there's lots of people around. I've also seen people make a bit of a silly mistake coming in with a cut price product in an area where people are actually quite affluent and they're really not understanding what that product is that their customers are after. Just one thing that I've seen work really successfully, if you are using a third-party aggregator for your delivery, something like Uber Eats or Just Eat, one thing that can work ridiculously well is in that bag that goes out, put a flyer in and say order direct and save. So whether you're going to order and deliver it yourself or order pick up, direct and save, and put the menu in there and they can see, oh wow, it's heaps cheaper. Now, really understand what the product is that you offer. For me, I'm lazy. I want the food delivered up to a point. And so we are getting takeaway tonight and it is coming from a restaurant that does deliver, but we are going out to pick it up because we know. And we ordered on the old school way. We actually used a telephone. Wow, a telephone, that's cute. But that's the only way that you can order from them. Their food's pretty good. It is more kind of a comfort food, to be completely honest. We're ordering from them because we know that it's going to be an extra $20 if we get it delivered through Menulog. And I just think that's a complete rip-off for the small amount of time on a weekend. It's not really costing anyone. It's not a pain. It's not a particularly odious task. Now, how many people are there that in your area who are ordering, say, Uber Eats from you, who would be prepared to come and pick the food up if it was 20% cheaper? Now, you might be paying 30% commission to Uber Eats. People come in, they pick it up, you're delivering directly to the customer, so there's none of the shenanigans that can go on when you've got a third-party aggregator delivery guy or gal doing their thing. your profit margin just went up quite a bit. And you've now got the contact details, you've got the email address, you've got all of those sort of things in there. That's pretty cool. And so these are the two things that I think from a holistic marketing / product point of view that you want to be thinking about. A little bit of engineering. Now, we talk quite a bit about menu engineering. What we want to do is we want to go one step further. Experience engineering and value engineering. Now, I'm planning 2 upcoming podcasts on these topics where we're going to delve into them a little bit in a lot more detail, just so that you can get some ideas about what it is that you can be doing to really sort of up your game in 2021. But experience engineering, what is the experience that you deliver to your customer? And it could be as simple as remembering the customer's name when they come in to get their coffee in the morning. That's an old trick. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it is really effective. People then feel that they have a bond with you. That builds customer loyalty. Could it be the ability to order off the menu? Is there a secret? Are there a series of secrets to your restaurant, to your menu? That could work really well. Will you introduce other activities on the quiet nights? What is the experience that you're aiming to deliver to your customers? Comfort food, perfect example. And the thing that I like about with experience engineering, you can play with this throughout the year. Set up your annual marketing campaign. Now's the time to be thinking about that, your next 12 months worth of marketing. Start thinking about the experiences that you want to bring into your restaurant for your customers to have. Now, the other component of it is value engineering. Where are you going to sit in the price continuum? Are you going to be very cheap? Because there is a place for that. Are you going to be very expensive? There's a place for that. Are you going to be the most expensive? There's a place for that. Once you've done your experience engineering, have a think about what is the product that the customer is getting from you and what they are prepared to pay for it. So the best example I can give with this is the local pizza restaurant. They do deliveries themselves. It is 20% cheaper if you order from them because they're doing order direct and save rather than using Uber Eats. They do a really good job of telling people about that. So if you want to deal with Uber Eats, that's fine, but there is a premium to that. And there are customers who will pay that premium. And look, that's fine. But they also have a large and growing number of customers who are now no longer Uber Eats customers when they're getting pizza. They are customers of this pizza place because of the fact that they can deal direct and they know that they're going to be getting a significant discount. It's the same sort of thing when you're looking at what it is that the costs that you've got to be able to run the business profitably. If you decreased your prices by 10%, would you get an increase in customers that was so big that would actually offset the decrease in profit and make you more profitable? Would you start to be able to scale up your business? Or if you put your prices up by 10%, would you lose fewer than the customers that would make it the revenue stay the same or the profit stay the same? Maybe you're going to only lose 1 or 2% of your customers because they think you're too expensive now, and yet so much more of that profit is flowing down to the bottom line, making a really big difference in your profitability. Or does it make your restaurant profitable? These are the kind of things that you can start to really play with when you start to do value engineering. Working out the parts of the product that your customers are willing to pay for and making sure that they pay the top marginal price for that product. So we've talked about leasing, really have a think about the space that you've got, the space that you're using, and the price that you're paying for it. Hit your landlord up for a discount, if nothing else. We've talked about some of the things in the business, your labor costs, your food costs, agility, flexibility in delivering the product to your customer. We've talked about the food, national and comfort food, things to think about as we move into 2021. And we've talked about marketing, where we've got that cute little formula that really gives you some ideas to think about. If you're not building your database, then, you really are setting yourself up for failure because so many restaurants now are getting in on that. The last trend, well, it's not really a trend, but it's the big thing, resilience. We're not at the end yet, and it might be a little bit longer before we get there. Things like international travel, If you rely on international travel in your restaurant, you might be waiting quite a while. So the big thing is resilience. Chin up. We know that these pandemics, they usually take a couple of years to work their way through their system. There was a pandemic in 57 and 58. It killed about 4 million people, really quite horrific. The Dow Jones went down 15% in that. But people these days, it was a fair while ago, but people don't talk about it too much. People picked themselves up, they dusted themselves off, and they got on with living their lives. This is what's going to happen with COVID-19. I am pretty confident. I'm 99% confident. Everyone has to eat. That places you guys in a really, really good market. It's just, and everyone's going to want to feel good about when we get out of this, when we're actually in the all clear. People are going to want to feel good about themselves. They're going to want to go out and they're going to want to have a good time. And I think that is the opportunity for you. Make sure that you do what you need to do so that you are there at the end. There's going to be a lot less restaurants around. Those that are resilient, flexible, and agile enough, then they're going to be at a perfect time because there's going to be a lot less restaurants. And if you don't make it through, then hey, maybe you can start again. It's been a really tough year. I don't think we're through all of the horror, but we are slowly getting there. So, yep, have a think about resilience, your mental health, all of those sort of things. Stay safe, and we will see you in 2021. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.